So in our previous video, we talked about how we came up with the electrical design parameters for our 60 watt mains flyback transformer. And in this video, I'm going to take the next step where we map those electrical characteristics onto a physical core and show you how we go about doing that. There are certain key parameters that come out of that first video, and these are, firstly, a turns ratio. In our case, it's a 4.58 to 1. We have a primary inductance requirement of 700 microhenries. A winding RMS current of 0.5 amps on the primary and 3.5 amps on the secondary, and peak primary current of 1.6 amps. Now, if you're actually subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can download a white paper with all of this information on, so check out the links below because that's quite a useful way to understand this in a bit more detail. So how do we go about turning these key parameters into a requirement for a physical size of transformer? Well, let's take a look. So, with the flyback converter, during the on time of the primary switch, energy is stored in the magnetizing inductance, and then during the off time of the switch, that energy is released to the secondary. And we can represent that with this typical Li squared equation. The important point, though, is to think physically, where is that energy stored within the transformer itself? And once we understood that transformer energy storage or core energy storage, we can use that as a way to determine how to go about designing and selecting the correct core size and windings for our particular transformer. Now, an important point to note with a flyback converter is there's an air gap typically used in that ferrite core, and that's actually where the energy is stored. Now, if we do some maths on this, which I shall do shortly, we'll actually see that the energy is stored, or the majority of the energy in the magnetizing inductance is actually stored physically within the air of that air gap. And I'll show you shortly how we can derive that. And therefore, you can see from this particular equation here that the energy stored in the gap is actually linearly proportional to the volume of the gap, which sort of makes sense. It's a physical space of that air gap, and it's proportional to the square of the flux density, and you often see that with energy equations. There's a square term in there. So let's take a look at how we derive this particular relationship, and then how to move on from that to come up with a physical core size. Here is a basic drawing of our transformer with magnetic cross-sectional area of A core and an air gap in the centre leg of LG. We assume NP primary turns are used. Equation 1 is our standard energy in an inductor equation. The first step is to express the primary inductance as a function of the number of primary turns and the total circuit magnetic reluctance. This is equation 2. Equations 1 and 2 can be combined to give equation 3. Now we need to introduce an expression which links the core flux density to the primary current, and this is done by starting with magnetic flux phi and then dividing by core area to give flux density as in equation 4. Equations 3 and 4 can be combined to give equation 5. Stick with me here, we're nearly through the maths. Equation 5 expressed the energy storage in terms relating to the geometry of the core and the flux density. However, we do need to go one step further to express reluctance in terms of core physical properties. The total reluctance of the circuit is the sum of the reluctance of the ferrite core material and the reluctance of the air gap. Reluctance in the magnetic domain is a bit like resistance in the electrical domain, but instead of voltage we have ampere turns, and instead of current we have magnetic flux. Looking at the maths, we see that the reluctance of the overall circuit is in most cases dominated by the reluctance of the air gap. The μr of the ferrite material is typically greater than 1000, and if we assume the air gap dominates, we can simplify equation 5 to give equation 6, our characteristic energy storage expression, where energy is linearly proportional to the air gap volume and proportional to the square of the flux density. This analysis does ignore the effects of fringing fields, which we will discuss shortly. A good way to think of the system is that the ferrite core focuses the flux into a defined region in the air gap where the energy is stored. So, we've got our great equation now which links the energy storage capability of the air gap to the air gap volume. And for a given transformer size, our piece of ferrite here, we can see that the air gap itself, the area must be fixed. And if we wanted to increase the energy storage capability of that part, why can't we just make the air gap longer? And theoretically that works, but there are some practical limitations that prevent us from doing that in the extreme case. And it's firstly linked to the fact that for our flyback converter, for the particular design we've come up with, we need a certain magnetizing inductance, and we can use the maths here on the slide to show what that looks like. So these fixed values of Lmag, that needs to stay the same. The core area, or the product of core area and mu naught, needs to stay the same because it's the same core size. So for a given core size, if we start increasing the length of the air gap, then we need to start putting more turns on that design to actually achieve the inductance we want. And there's a fixed winding area for those turns to exist within, so more turns means thinner wire, and therefore we start running higher resistance in those primary and secondary windings, and therefore more loss in those windings. So there's ultimately there's an upper limit on how much we can push the air gap based on winding loss. But there's a secondary effect as well. Now we've assumed at the moment that our air gap here, shown with the red lines, is short enough such that the magnetic field exists pretty much purely within that space. And for a very short air gap, that's largely the case. The challenge comes though, when you start making that air gap much longer, is that we start getting fringing fields. So instead of the magnetic field going vertically down at the edges, it starts to propagate round. And it propagates into the region where the copper windings of the primary and secondary exist. And because it's running at high frequency, it will impose eddy current losses within those windings. So it starts again pushing loss into the windings. So a larger air gap means more fringing loss, a less efficient transformer. And we can give you a sort of a both ends of this dynamic, if you like. If we have a very short air gap, then probably we're underutilizing the capabilities of that core. We could make the core smaller for the same power level. However, if we try and push the air gap longer than it realistically is possible for us to do, then the transformer is going to overheat due to fringing losses and the increased winding losses that we've just discussed. So in practice, we need to strike a good balance between those two. And there are analytical ways you can look at this, but to give you a bit of a rule of thumb, for most offline mains flybacks running, I don't know, in the range of 50 to 100 kilohertz, something like that, up to 100 watts. The typical air gap, or the maximum typical air gap you really want to look at, is anywhere from 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters. Much more than that, and then you could start running into significant losses in the transformer. But that's just a bit of a rule of thumb. So we've got our fancy equation. How do we actually turn that into a decision for a particular core size? Well, unless you're building a fully custom core, which is going to be expensive, you have to choose from a certain number of discrete available parts. So what we can do is put together a spreadsheet where we tabulate the cross-sectional area of these particular parts with differing air gap lengths, and then look at the number of turns required for a certain amount of energy storage based on our equation. Let's take a look at the spreadsheet we put together to do exactly that. So this is our spreadsheet tool. What we're doing is tabulating a number of different core sizes here with increasing core area as we move from left to right. And the actual core areas are highlighted in yellow. And then vertically in column A, we're increasing the air gap length from about 0.1 millimeters upwards. So what we're doing is plotting out a number of different combinations of core area and air gap length, and therefore different volumes of air gap. You don't really want to go less than about 0.1 millimeters for an air gap though, because it becomes very hard to get any level of tolerance around that, and you could end up with a very poorly defined primary inductance. So how do we apply this tool? Well, first of all, we've got our variables that we discussed at the start of this particular video. The peak primary current we know is 1.6 amps. We've got a maximum flux density requirement here, so that, remember from our special equation, if we can increase flux density we can store more energy, but we have to be careful with core losses. Our converter is running at 70 kilohertz, so we're going to push towards the top end of where we would sit the flux density, so we're going for 300 milliteslas here. And our other design target is we need 700 microhenries of primary inductance. So the result of that is we can calculate just from a half Lm I peak squared that we need to be able to store 0.9 millijoules in the air gap of our transformer. and therefore we can apply our special equation to work out what combination of air gap lengths and cross-sectional areas we need to meet that requirement. Now you can see here in the spreadsheet we've got some actual numbers and we've got some colours going on. Firstly, if we take a look at the colour shaded areas, what we've done here, anything shaded in red is a combination of core cross-sectional area and air gap length, which doesn't provide the volume we need to store the energy required without exceeding the 0.3 Tesla. So anything highlighted in red is a core that's not going to work. Similarly, the areas in green are combinations of core area and air gap length, which provide a volume that is significantly greater than that required to store that same energy with 0.3 Tesla. So it would mean lower flux densities. And what we're really saying there is the areas in green would be an oversized transformer. So that would just be costly, and we don't really want to go there either. The interesting and the important bit is the area shaded in blue. That's our sweet spot. And what we're showing there is combinations of air gap length and cross-sectional area, which allow us to store the core energy to be within about plus or minus 10% of the target with 300 millitesla. So what we're saying here is this blue area is highlighting viable design options for us. And there's quite a number of combinations that we can live with here. The actual numbers within each cell are the number of primary turns that we need to put on the transformer to meet the required primary inductance. So the question now is, how do we come up with our core size and what's the trade-off here? Well, from this tool here, if we take our 0.5mm air gap here, let's choose E25 to be the smallest core. What's the trade-off here? Well, the important point to remember is as air gaps get longer, we need more turns on the core, so current density goes up, and also we get more fringing loss. So what we're really saying is, as we transition from the top right blue area to the bottom left blue area, we're driving more winding loss into our transformer, and it's going to get hotter. So our choice of where we sit on that line depends on realistically how hot we want our transformer to get. When I'm coming up with these sorts of designs, I try to be a little bit conservative. We don't really like too much heat in power electronics. So we can see here, if I choose an ETD34, it's roughly halfway along that balancing curve, if you like. And I've actually chosen to use 41 turns, so it's slightly we're running slightly less than the 300 millitesla, but that's because with 41 turns, 41 divided by 4.58 is near enough 9 turns, so we get the right sort of turns ratio. So from that lookup sheet, we can see an ETD34 with 41 primary turns and 9 secondary turns is about where we want to be. As a final treat, we can model our custom transformer using the magnetic simulation capability of PLECs. Here we have used our 41 primary and 9 secondary turns on an ETD34 core with a centre leg air gap of 0.29mm. From the simulation, we see peak core flux density of 265 milliteslas, an output voltage very close to 24 volts and a primary RMS current of half an amp RMS with a peak of 1.65 amps. Our design looks good.